Guys, what is the definition of consent?
Oh my gosh.
What is AI?
Look,
and how does fraud work?
how does it work?
Welcome to the trial
Jake,
of
did you-
Sam
Welcome to the
Gorski.
trial of Sam Gorski.
Jake,
Yep.
did you fly here to serve Sam papers?
Yeah, usually I'm at my home studio in Texas, but this week I flew all the way to Los Angeles.
All the way?
So that the trial of Sam so that I could be a witness against him.
Yes, you guys notice Jake and myself are sitting on opposite sides of the room.
Literally as far away from each other as they can get.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yep.
because unfortunately, after the video last week, well, let's just say the relationship has been shaken up a little bit. Soured. After I did what I did to him.
You just didn't get that consent.
That was so mean. Can I just say?
Was that mean?
So,
So mean.
just real talk for a second. We've gotten a lot of comments on the videos, both on Corridor Digital and on the crew channel. And we just thought it would be a good opportunity to take time, talk about the video, talk about the context, talk about kind of how things work when we approach these videos. And then also maybe get into like some of these other issues, like what is consent and what is AI?
the moral
and what-
conundrums.
Yeah.
What
the moral
is
conundrums.
staged
And what is storytelling?
and
Right.
what is not
Yeah.
staged?
So I think the first thing we should do is just kind of go over like, how did we get here?
You know what? Honestly, I think we should have you say it, because in that video,
I'm
I
not
do a
going to
lot.
say the consent line.
I do a
Is
lot
that
of
what you-
talking.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Because we pulled it all from this podcast, so we're trying to like get you to actually say
No,
it, so
no.
it's easier next
I'm
time.
just saying the video is me talking a lot, and so I think Jake, you summarize in your words what happened.
I mean, dude, I didn't see the final video until like right before it went live, or the day before. That is such a good video. Oh my God. Like it's got such an emotional like journey. It's got you messing around with the tech. Like it's and I think that's what fooled people. And we didn't even, sometimes this happens. We'll tell a story and to us it's like very obvious and apparent that like certain portions of it are staged, or like there's a, you know, there's like a underlying context to how we're going into it.
Tongue in cheek.
Yeah, and that's because, you know, we sometimes we have these ideas like weeks in development, months in development sometimes. Some of them are like years in development. And that was one of these ones. We had talked about this video. It was a couple weeks in development. And then Nico did his, and then timing wise, it worked out great. But we had already had this established context of like, okay, we're going to do a voice AI video. We talked about using someone's voice in the studio, and we were like, okay, and obviously we had talked about it being me because I'm the brand guy. And so the context was like, well, if we can so the ultimate goal here is to come up with a completely AI Jake. I think.
Yeah. Eventually, we want to
It's on
automate your brand deals.
Yeah, it's on the
Right.
list of big goals
Yeah.
to do.
So like
With consent.
We've already seen the earlier versions of that too, where you have the mannequin with the,
Yeah.
the
Right.
tablet.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
You know?
It started with the green screen avatar that Clint was puppeting for us.
Yeah.
It's been a long time coming. And even this voice AI thing.
It did start with a shallow fake.
The voice AI, which is like, by the way, the creepiest ad segment I've ever seen. It's amazing. And
like-
Nico and I
But
filmed 2
Storyblocks
years
is
ago.
awesome, by the way.
2 years ago, Nico and I started filming with this little startup down the street, this voice AI video.
Yes.
So we've been wanting to do it. Thing is, we couldn't find a good story for it. It was like, okay, what do you do with voice AI? Like,
Right.
what's the story? And I think, Dean, you found a great story.
Well, yeah, I think Sam just saw that there was a need, you know? There was a demand. One person in particular had a distinct need for this voice AI, and that's Jake.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I think Jake, before we even talk too much further, I think it's just important that you still explain
Sure.
what happened in
Right.
forgetting the video for a second. Just
Yeah.
what happened in real life. So we
Right.
left that off with we've talked about this. In fact, even the podcast 2 podcasts ago,
Yeah. We talked about this.
We
Yeah.
recapped this whole thing, saying
And
what we're doing.
So let me pick it up there. So then we're every week we have a meeting about what videos are coming out that week, what videos are in production, what's on sort of on the in the queue. And then Dean and Sam were like, all right, we're going to do this voice AI one. And Sam was like, well, I got to keep little parts of it a secret just for like dramatic effect and stuff. And I was like, oh, okay. So we had talked about it. We had talked about you know, the sort of like overall, this is what we're gonna try to do. And then Dean and Sam went off and shot it, and I asked you on like a few days before, I was like, is everything good? You guys are good? And you guys are like, yeah, we're good. I was like, okay.
Don't worry about it.
And I didn't, and a lot of times people don't know this, but a lot of times we will hold off on talking about stuff to each other until it's on camera, just so that there's more of a natural reaction to things. And that is super important for like establishing a genuine presence in the video so that they're truly entertaining. And that's one thing. I knew you guys were doing voice AI, and I kind of knew my voice is probably going to be involved somehow. I didn't know exactly how.
I would say you knew everything, but that you hadn't given consent.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
So that we're gonna get there. So then you use the decoy, which is classic, which is what I did with my Batman and Superman videos, which is I had somebody else say something about something that was happening.
Oh, that was so critical.
And so Nico put out this, Nico wants to have a studio protocol meeting.
Which made everyone so like irritated. Everyone's like, this is stupid. No one, like you're saying this is stupid. I even heard that Nick was like, a stupid meeting.
I was like, what company culture are we talking
Yeah,
about?
it's just not a good
like, scooters
even
in the office.
4 o'clock too on like a Thursday is not a good time for that.
Nico presenting it is so critical, because if Sam, everybody said this, if Sam had come up and be like, hey guys, I got a video to show you, everybody like, yeah, right. Like, yeah, you're right, Sam. But Nico coming up, everybody's like, okay,
right.
He's probably got something.
Right.
Nico often brings, kind of policy things to the table.
Yeah.
So it made sense.
Jake, in going into that meeting, what was your like feeling? What was your expectation?
So it like Christian and I were talking that morning, or like maybe it was the day before, and he was like, yeah, Nico wants to do this thing at 4 tomorrow, like a studio protocol thing. And I was like, oh, okay. And I actually had notes prepared. I
had some things to say.
I had notes prepared for like studio protocol and like company culture stuff that I've been like keeping track of a few things that I would like to mention,
These dishes are starting to pile up in the sink.
You have your whole list ready.
And so I thought that was going to be a genuine like protocol meeting, but then when we sat down and then Sam was messing around with the video, I was like, okay, I still didn't know what it was about. But like obviously I was giving them the benefit of the doubt, and then as soon as the video started playing, I knew exactly what had happened.
Well, before that, Nico says, so Jake prepared a video for us.
As soon as he said that, I knew.
You said it.
You're like, oh, I'm the one.
You're like, what? You're like, what? Like, excuse me?
You muted him.
Yeah, but the thing is, now the plan was we get you on the call, we have you speak out to everyone, and once we make sure everything's working, we just mute you. And so...
Oh god!
So that worked brilliantly, which I was very proud of, because I've been doing the pranks around here lately, and it was funny to get pranked. And then this stupid like script that the AI wrote was so dumb. And then after, I think you cut most of this, but like after the actual video played, I started just going along with it to see who else we could fool. Yeah. Because I knew what it was. And
because you didn't know the crime at the center.
I didn't know the crime at the center, which we'll get to. So then
federal offense.
Yeah. And then you were like, wait, but seriously, I need your consent. But you didn't really, like technically you did, but he had already, and the thing was, I didn't know what AI you had used. And so I was actually like, maybe I shouldn't consent to this because I don't know what's going to happen with my name and likeness. But then I did read the terms of service, and it's totally fine. Like it's just for...
Yeah, but that's funny because that your apprehension on like, wait, how did you get this trained and who was it trained with? That transformed into the overall consent of like, am I okay with having my voice replicated in general?
Right.
And that's how it comes through in the video, which obviously is where
so just people have context here. Like Sam and I are partners in this business, and like So anything that like,
So there's no pressure from your boss
it's
to
not- yeah.
consent
it wasn't like
for
that.
content.
Right. And we also have a general policy, which we could have gone over if it was an actual protocol meeting.
Let's revisit our contracts, please.
Which is if you are uncomfortable with anything that we're going to put in a video, it's your call. You get to have it removed.
Yeah.
And we've always been like that. I don't know why I'm looking at camera so much. I guess I'm talking to the viewer.
That's important.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people are rightfully upset by this video.
Yeah,
So, I mean, we
because
are
of the way
kind
that
of
it was
talking to them.
portrayed. So I just want to hit that point. Like, know that we never put pressure on people to be like, you need to be in this video and you need to give your consent. Like, if I would have been actually uncomfortable with that, I would have just been like, yo, no, we can't release that.
You wouldn't have seen the video. It wouldn't have come out.
Yeah, no one would have seen
honestly.
it.
Yeah.
No one would have seen it.
But the funny thing is that there's this question that people were proposing and discussing, which is this video staged? Because that fact seemed to be what all the morality hinged on, which was, if this is for real, this is really bad.
Yeah.
And if this is staged, it's just a tasteless narrative.
Yeah.
And
But still makes me sick.
it still makes me icky. But the
That's
funny
verbatim.
thing is
Yeah.
that was this staged? No, it wasn't staged.
Yeah.
I legitimately,
Right.
without your permission, use the service to make your AI voice.
I thought
However,
it
you
was
were already
brilliant,
okay
dude. Yeah.
with making an AI voice for yourself.
I
feel
was.
like there's
I was already. we had-
it's
so that's
very-
another
it's-
huge point
It's
there.
very muddy
Yeah.
because of
And you
that.
had
It's
already
not
explained.
like it's not like you stole his credit card info or something.
Right.
It's like you did a thing that you could have done without his consent. But the hilarious part of it is that just for this one service, you needed to manufacture his consent.
And we had talked about that to each other.
Yes.
We were talking about it on the podcast. We had talked about it not on camera as well. And you were like, yeah, so I have to do this thing where I give my voice. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. Like, what's, and so I knew, and then we also said, we should do a voice AI for me.
Yes.
And so like I had already agreed with the premise.
Yes.
Which
Which is funny.
Yeah.
But the thing is that like it's how unstaged it really was, and like that was the thing. Like I just didn't want to respond to any of these comments because I'm like, nothing I can say technically. Like
fan
I
the
can't just
flames.
summarize this quickly, just saying, "Don't worry, guys, it's all staged," because it's like
Right.
It's not.
it wasn't.
Right. Guys, huge thanks to Storyblocks for always sponsoring this podcast. I wanted to do this integration with Nick because he actually uses Storyblocks.
Oh, yeah. Big fan.
So Nick, Storyblocks claims that they're the one-stop shop for all your stock asset needs. Would you say that that's fair?
I think that's pretty accurate, man.
Okay.
I mean, whether it's, shots of corporate millennials,
Right.
pointing at whiteboards
Right.
or hikers going through beautiful glaciers and
Right.
forests.
You never quite know what you're going to need.
Literally, you can build the craziest stories.
Would you say that they have a virtually unlimited library of high-quality 4K B-roll, images, audio, stock assets, such as motion graphics and After Effects templates and more?
Yes to all the above.
Do you appreciate that they have an unlimited all-access plan where we can download as much as we want, however we want, and use it in whatever we
Oh, boy,
want?
do I. Yeah. No, I
all
mean,
royalty-free.
we have been blessed with a Corridor account.
Right.
And like 3 of us editors.
Yeah.
We tap that all the time.
Well, what's funny is
Good stock
we
assets.
were using them before they sponsored the
They
podcast.
were.
Yeah.
We were using them back
Yeah.
when they were called Video Blocks. Sorry,
Right.
Storybox Corporate. I know you don't like that brand identity and such, but we won't show the logo. We've honestly been using them for a long time, and stock footage is like the most useful thing as any kind of filmmaker. Even if you're just roughing stuff out, like, dude. In fact, you know what? It's really funny. We went and saw this Netflix preview screening. Can't say what it is or who it is. They used Storyblocks,
Did they?
shots of LA for their intros. Like, so like even at the top, they're using Storyblocks to like even just rough stuff out and like give a
Right.
really cinematic feeling for like, I don't know.
Well, I
It was
think
just so
that's-
funny. I'm like, oh yeah, I use that.
I think that's all you need to know right there. Like that's a beautiful summary of how we use it and why we use it. So if you guys are interested in being a serious creator, maybe you're a serious professional creator already and you just need that extra tool, Storyblocks is what we use. We highly encourage it. And if you're interested, head on over to storyblocks.com/CorridorCast or just click the link in the description below. What was that, Nick? What was the URL?
I believe it was storyblocks.com/CorridorCast.
There you go. Back onto this Sam's trial.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But it's deep. It's like, this is why we have to have a whole podcast about it.
Everything here is kind of staged and kind of not staged. It's like literally, I think there's like an overall context too, and you guys being really good friends and partners, and also us also knowing that we're working here. We're going to be in content. We're going to be the center of pranks, content, zany things, and of course we have the right to veto them if we want.
Right.
I don't know. It's just like there's a lot of context missing. I think reading the comments, what it's telling me is that this is a really good video. I think you did a great job, Dean, telling the story, honing in on the scariest part of AI, which is people taking your shit and replicating it without your consent.
Yes.
And we focused on the most dramatic aspect of all AI for people. And I think it really struck a chord, dude.
And I think this, we've been doing all these AI videos, and this is something I've really thought would be fun, is like to get into the morality of it, because it's weird. And like, there's this weird part at the end of the video where everybody's screaming at Jake to give his consent to this machine.
Consent.
And
Which,
like,
this
is the weird territory we're starting to get into, where it's like, we can make completely convincing replicas of people's voices, people's faces, and without their consent. And like, there's, like I said, plenty of services where you don't even need to have somebody say like, oh yeah, I'm cool with this. It's like, you could just, Sam says in the video, like we do with Mark Hamill, just grab a bunch of his face and then you could throw his face on somebody, or with other voice services, you can just,
so there's so many moral and like legal lines here that are all converging, which is why it's so confusing for people. And this happens every time an impactful new technology comes out. But like, we saw that one Descript, I think maybe it was a different one, but they had taken Barack Obama's voice, and
I think that's Respeecher, maybe.
Yeah, and the guy was able to speak, and then it sounded exactly like him. So with a guy like that, with Barack Obama, like, not only is he a public figure, but he's also a politician. So then like your level of like protection for your own name and likeness goes down in terms of like people's ability to use clips of you, to use your voice for things, because you're a public representative of the people.
Yeah.
And so then there's another tier after that, which is like celebrities and stuff, people who are not elected, but are still known in the public culture and in the public conscious. And then there's people like me, for example, on the show that we're putting it on. It's like, it's like people expect me to be in the videos sometimes, like my voice is in the videos, my face is in the videos, like, and so if it was a random person and you were like, random person's voice, and it's a real person, took that and now we're exploiting it for money. Like that's a clear,
that's not free speech. That's fraud.
Right. That's just stealing someone's name and likeness.
And also like it's blatantly being used for like the goofiest end game ever to make a really dumb motivational team speech. Yeah. And like that needs to be taken into account too, I think.
Yeah.
There's something,
but people don't care.
I want to talk about like the ability to use it for nefarious things, but also that's important. But yeah, like the context of how that came about is like it's everything, and obviously we didn't show all the context because it's not as good of a story.
Yeah, well, I mean, but the story it's like looking at it, it's like this. The way you told the story was very truthful to honestly how it went down. Yeah, obviously.
There's no. I wouldn't say there's any lies.
No,
there.
Like the only thing that's obscured is really just like the scene 0, which is Jake and me saying, "Hey, yeah, let's do an AI version of your voice," which happened multiple times and even was recorded and uploaded to the internet. But the thing is like when it comes to the morality part here, it's like when I was asking for your consent, by the way, like I was being legit. Like I was being totally like, obviously I could have done it, but the thing is I had to forge your voice to do it.
Because Sam is a moral actor.
Yes.
I will say though, I think there is a world where if we weren't as story focused and we were more afraid of maybe, I don't know, pissing Jake off for real, we could have just called Jake and be like, hey, can you just like consent to this real fast? We're making this video.
Right.
Like, hey, it's just pretend like you don't know what's going on in the scene we're going to film in 3 days.
Yeah.
But like, I remember Dean came over to the desk and you just shot with Sam and you're like, dude, I found the story to this video.
Yeah.
Like, we just figured out we have to get vocal consent. And I was like, oh, that's great. Like,
Yeah.
So like, but like, if there's any thought in my mind that like, oh, Jake's going to fucking like come from Texas and beat Sam's ass for that, like, we probably wouldn't have done that video.
No.
Like,
Yeah,
because
no,
we know you.
I totally
but-
wouldn't have, because that was the thing. Like I was researching, like there's a wide variety of ways to do this, and they all involve like, you know, uploading clips of your voice and doing all that stuff. So I'd already started collecting podcast stuff, and I have, you know, for multiple people here, and so it just so happened that one of the services that happened to be like that perfect middle ground of ease of use and quality required this one specific way to unlock the voice.
Right.
And that was like where the whole idea for the story came from, which is like like there's tons of other ways where it's like I wouldn't even had to do that.
Yeah,
like if I was just downloading like the Git or whatever on running Python on one of these machines,
You also
I don't have to do that.
Consider
Like,
it legally in the context. Like Sam and I have already agreed to use each other's name and likeness for exploitive purposes to the endeavor of the business.
Yeah.
Like that whole like you need to consent to this, we need your line is already superseded by the contract that like Sam and I have with each other in the business.
But I will say there are still real life stakes where Sam is sitting there and he's like, "Wait, Jake, you're not giving me your consent."
yeah.
Like, I need to know that this was okay, and
so
then I
let's talk
didn't
about
like hurt your
that.
feelings.
And then let's
Well,
talk
that's
about
the scene that really miffed people was
Yes.
everyone cheering consent. And I get why, okay?
Right.
Like now looking at it, I totally understand why everyone's triggered because the word consent has baggage.
Yeah,
And
there's the Venn diagram where you
Yes.
have you have the circle of sexual assault, and then the other side of the Venn diagram is like
Terms and services.
blindlessly scrolling through the terms of service of a company and hitting agree.
right.
And the
Fucked up
word
diagram.
consent overlaps just a little bit in the middle.
Right.
And that's where most of this conversation lies.
Right.
Where it's like, it's just the concept of the word consent in public discourse is generally only used when it comes to sex.
Right.
You know? And so like
Or
I'm
some,
just saying,
or
like,
some
the
like
mental
personal
fortitude I needed over the weekend was very, very strong.
what reading through the comments?
Dude, they're like, dude, Sam is giving rape vibes this whole video.
No, dude,
Very rapey
there's a lot of-
vibes.
and
And
that-
I'm like, frick.
That was the weirdest part to me was
Like-
like it's obviously a tech experiment. Yes, there's some like controversial like AI stuff going on and like
Right.
identity
Yeah.
theft stuff going on.
Yeah.
All for a story, but people are instantly going to rape. And like whether they say rape, but they say like, you know, consent is like I'm getting like this is not a good thing to like put out for like young male
I
viewers.
saw that, too.
It's like,
I'm
dude,
like-
we're not gonna treat our audience like children.
Like this-
okay?
like nowhere.
We're not gonna sit down and be like, okay, so
Yeah.
consent.
Yeah. Let's talk
Well,
about the
let's
nuance
talk
of
about
it.
yeah. No, it's like you should be able to discern that this is
Yeah.
a completely different side of the Venn diagram.
This,
Like,
yeah.
It's
It's-
just that was a bit weird.
There's that whole thing, and then there's this whole other subject, which I think I was reawakened to, which is this concept of, you know, how you are viewed, so to speak. Because like when we're filming these videos, like we're just right here filming videos with each other, but then they go through the editing process, the narrative becomes streamlined and it gets sharper, and then when it gets released, you know, like it's not like people see just a bunch of real people agreeing to do things. It's like it becomes this own like narrative, and we become characters. And so then suddenly, like the way people perceive these events happening, it's like the narrative hones in on an emotional state or an action and amplifies it, you know, for the sake of storytelling. But then our decisions and actions and words become larger than life. And, you know, that's starts to go into that TV show, movie territory, because it's just the nature of the medium. But at the same time, it's kind of like my mischievous or even maybe villainous like kind of element
Yes.
gets magnified to the
dude.
point where I suddenly become
You're
this,
the heel.
Yeah, this heel.
Yeah.
Where
And we saw this with the Beeple video too.
Yeah.
That was the first time we had like a huge like audience response to something that we thought was absolutely hilarious.
Because people
Yeah.
love
And
Peter.
I think that's
anytime people get
Not
on about
only
our boy
though,
Pete.
I think it was the heel thing too.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, yeah, because
Yeah,
I
it's just
think
so
it's
like
Yeah.
in
People do love
that
Peter.
context, like Beeple was just having like a good time picking on Peter, and Peter was totally game for it.
Right.
But
We
in
think.
editing that video, I just thought, I'm sitting there, like I'm editing these videos, I'm trying to have a good time editing it. So I thought it was so funny if I just cut out all the parts where they're laughing, and it's just Beeple. It's just Beeple picking on Peter. Peter being, and I thought like if I
Right.
like do a hard zoom in on this, like people will understand that like it's tongue in cheek. Like Peter is not. If Peter was legitimately feeling bullied by somebody at work, again, we wouldn't put out the video. It's
That
like
would be-
if
yeah.
you guys are seeing something, we're all sitting there
Yeah.
dying laughing at it, and it's the same thing with this video. Like, when,
and by the way, like we all watch the videos generally before they go out. So like, I'm not sure. You said you didn't watch this one particularly,
yeah.
but like it's general thing that we all know what's going to be released.
I saw it when you posted it to. Well, it hadn't come out on the website yet, and you had also uploaded it to YouTube, and so I watched it when it was private scheduled.
yeah. And then also
Yeah.
right after we shot that scene, I was telling Jake like, this is gonna be so funny, and Jake's like, yes, I also think it's gonna be funny.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I think a large part of the outrage is also because people like you. They love you as a character.
I think
And
I'm a
Jake-
heel in the content.
no,
but
no, no,
I
no,
don't
no.
know.
Not in this video.
No, like there's a
Sam
huge part of the
out-heeled you.
audience that loves your like independent spirit and like know
Right.
that Texas vibe,
Right.
And like that's a part of your character,
Yeah.
in real life and on the show,
Right.
So they felt pissed when that got trampled on by mean
Right.
old Sam.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
my, that's
And
my
don't
favorite
tread
part.
on
No,
me, Sam.
like really. So
That's
like
my favorite part of the video is when you're like, come and take it. And Sam's like, but I already took it.
literally just took it without asking.
I know. I walked myself into that one.
It was funny. Oh gosh.
back to the chance.
So that's
Chance.
another thing. Like, and we don't go into detail on that, like specific of, hey, if you're not into anything where you're appearing on camera publicly in this setting, you just tell us. And we don't talk about that very often, but that is like a baseline, very well understood here. And so I think for a lot of people who don't know that and didn't see that, then yeah, it's like, whoa, like you guys violated this guy, but
and then uploaded this video,
right,
without-
and
yeah.
uploaded this video. But without that context, like it is hard to understand, which is why we wanted to have a podcast
Yeah.
about it, so that people
I don't
who
think
are
yeah.
interested can hear that side of it.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of projection going on, but also most people, I don't think people are wrong when I'm reading these comments. It's like we can't dismiss them because like obviously we had that effect on people. Like
Right.
the choices we made making this video had a overall negative effect. It
Yeah,
seems
but
like.
it's
So what do we take from that?
well, what I seriously still take from it though, it's this prism of like emotion where like they're reacting, or like is there, it's like, do they watch Game of Thrones, and they're like, oh, I hate that Lannister, or something like that, and it's like, well, it's like the effect of like sometimes hating the actor.
Yeah.
When it's like, no, this was just lines. You know what I'm saying? And there's like this weird blend going on there where it's like they hate me and they think I'm non-consensually doing things.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But the thing is that like that hate and like they think the hate and anger is personally directed at me, but like it's really directed at the concept of the narrative rather than me personally. But because it's YouTube, it blends.
Oh yeah.
Right.
And so it's like it's this weird. It's really hard for me. I generally try not to read comments. This is not the first time this has happened. Like when I read comments like this, I'm like, I kind of go like, ooh, this hurts. And then I think about it more and more. I'm like, how do I get over this? I'm like, oh yeah, become that character. Become this like creepy like villain that's gonna just like make fun and jack up everything people like. And try and make a great story out of it,
right.
like try and keep it. And so it's like, it's really hard to resist that temptation to just like embody that further.
You made me like this.
It's like I'm like, yeah, here we go. How else am I gonna violate people? You know, like,
I feel like
I'm serious. Like, it's really weird.
Sometimes the only way, like, if you were to apologize, then people think, oh, that was all real, and Sam actually did something wrong, rather than what it actually was we're just having fun, and But if you are to lean even harder into the character, people start to understand, like, oh, this is a character. Like, I'm not watching Sam like 100% real Sam. I'm watching like heightened.
I know. We almost
like,
need to have a
jacked
follow
up
video
Sam.
where it's like, I stole everyone's voice. And I'm like, I play clips and they're like, was that me? I'm like, it's mine. I own you. You know, it's like people will watch that and they go like, oh, okay, I get it.
Like, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's literally the term consent triggers a lot of people, especially when a whole group of people
I didn't even
is chanting
think
it.
about that because my lawyer brain is like when I hear the word molested in like a context that is other than with a child,
Yeah.
like I think of it in the true sense of the word,
law
which is the
context.
legal sense of the word, which is to like manipulate and change something like without with malice usually.
Right.
And so that's another thing. And then like the whole fraud thing of like you defrauded Jake. Like, so I just want to mention this. Fraud is the material misrepresentation of a fact. It's the misrepresentation of a material fact, which causes another person to act in their detriment. And so, first of all, if it's a material misrepresentation, if I know about it, it's not a misrepresentation because I know the truth. Mm-hmm. Right. And then obviously the second part of that is it has to cause me to act in my detriment. Nothing about what you did. In fact, everything about what you did only benefits me because I'm part of this company.
Yeah.
And so like it cannot by definition be fraud, even though without the context, it's like you could see it as that.
But I mean,
Yeah,
you're
well,
not,
that's the
you're
funny-
not actually moving to Silicon Valley, and
So-
you're not
yeah, that's
That's
actually.
true. I got my hopes up a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's
Jordan Coleman almost bought
Yeah,
it. I think
she
she was
was
like, "Is he moving back?"
Yeah, like she's like, wait a second. It all like I realized what was happening when he said he was moving to California because I know he hates everything about LA.
Jordan had like out of everyone, Jordan Coleman had like almost no idea what was going on because she's like running around doing a million productions.
Yeah.
And it's like, shit, I got to do this meeting.
Well, because the funny
Jake's got to tell us the big announcement.
yeah. Well, the funny
And then
thing too.
he's like, I'm moving to
It's like,
California.
I was pretty like since you weren't in the studio last week too. It's like I was way too vocal about what I was doing for
Yeah.
like it to really fool anyone watching.
Yeah.
Like, because everyone had heard me say AI, always working on an AI voice thing, blah blah blah, and so it's pretty common knowledge that once it started playing and it was that goofy that I was like, oh, this is it. This is the AI voice thing he was working on.
But you can see the different levels of how attuned into that people were. Like
Yeah.
with Jordan and who else? Who else was? Oh, Griffin.
Yeah.
Right, because they're like the furthest removed from the process that you two were doing.
Yeah.
Like physically, they're
Yeah,
just the
physically,
farthest
yeah.
away
Yeah,
from
yeah.
us
Yeah.
doing that.
So that was lot going on there.
The
But
legal ramifications. I think
Right.
this is a multifaceted subject,
Yeah.
which is really funny. Let's start with the easiest thing, which is yes, I did get banned from using the service.
yes.
Okay.
I
Nice.
I kind of knew this was gonna happen because we were literally doing a video showing how we're subverting it.
Right.
Breaking the
And
rules.
you're
So
And-
they're obviously gonna.
And like their CEO emailed us, and he said, "Hey, just heads up, since you publicly / flagrantly
Since you flagrantly violated the
violated our terms of service, we've removed, terminated your account." But they did. He was very cordial about it. He was like, just saying, you violated the terms of service, but also just recognizing what you did wasn't unethical.
Yeah.
Because there was all this context there, and he was pretty nice about it, and I responded and I said, yeah, not surprised. Like I was literally waiting for an email from you guys. I knew this was somehow going to land on your doorstep. I knew I was going to get banned, but here we are. But great work, guys. You have a great product and great service. Wish you all the best.
So it points out a couple things. Like, had it happened in the exact manner that was sort of portrayed for dramatic effect in the video, where I was totally unaware. Sam was my boss. Like, he was going to then use it and take it and do whatever he wants with it. Like, obviously that's unethical. Obviously. It's just, that wasn't the context. And we would never do something like that if that was the context.
Yeah. Like,
and that's the bottom line.
There was a very large number of comments saying that I would be going to prison.
Yeah. Here's
I'm going to prison.
Jail,
not
like prison.
It's like, if I were Jake, I'd be pressing charges right now.
Yeah, no. This is legit illegal. Please, I'm begging of you guys to have Jake make some sort of public statement and pull back the curtain, at least on Twitter.
That's what we're doing.
That's what we're doing now.
We're doing that right now.
This is awful, disgusting, and wrong. I know you meant it in good fun, but you've given people the wrong idea, which is valid, that little point, possibly. Peer pressured someone and broken the terms of service. This is wrong, and I refuse to support any company performing such disgusting acts.
Right.
That's a real comment.
And that's Corridor Digital's not Descript, right?
No, it's not Descript.
That's the CEO of Descript.
And then there's this one. I'd prob punch the guy who used my voice like that.
I probably. I know. I haven't gotten any like direct threats. It's all in the comments, which is good. I mean,
What was that email you were talking about?
there was one email from someone who claimed to be a solicitor on Australia's or Queensland Supreme Court, something like that.
Whoa.
And he was just outlining, that what we did was fraud, and I could be sentenced to 4 to 10 years of jail or whatever in Australia.
I believe he said
Australia.
this video should have been left on the cutting room floor.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So again, like, obviously, considered without any context whatsoever, and sort of with this overarching perception of like, my name and likeness isn't already on the channel. I'm a random person. The consent thing and how it kind of, it's going towards like very personal things. Yeah, I get some of the outrage, but it's because it was designed to tell a good story, and it does tell a good story, and that's why I think it's a great video.
Would you? Okay, I'm just saying, like, realistically here, it's like, let's just talk through this. Let's say I'm going to prison for using an AI voice. Okay, what do I actually have to do to land in prison in the first place? Because I'm not going to prison.
You can go to prison for fraud.
Yes, it could be fraud.
It would have to be like egregious fraud to the point where, they'd be likely to sentence you for more than 1 year.
Yeah.
And yeah, you have to materially misrepresent a fact such that the other person is harmed by it, whether it's physical, emotional, financial harm. Mostly financial harm is the easiest way to summarize it.
I don't know if you guys have seen this. There's actually an example of this case. There was somebody shared it in our company chat, but there's a mother of a cheerleader.
Oh yes.
Who was accused by another mother of making a deep fake video of the other mother's daughter vaping. And so essentially this mom is accused of like creating all these deep fake videos of these kids doing awful things because, I don't know, she wanted to catapult the other cheerleaders to make her daughter, who's also a cheerleader, like more successful.
Or she just like trying to like say, oh, my daughter doesn't vape. It was a deep fake.
Well, she's trying to make everyone else look bad so her daughter succeeds better.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, well, that was the argument. And I went, because recently the charges got dropped because you watch the video and it's like this high school girl's obviously just vaping. Like, it's just obviously a video of her vaping. And then they cut to the interview with the daughter that the news did. And she's like, oh yeah, it's crazy. They can like fake these videos now. And
like,
she's obviously lying.
Crazy. Yeah.
And this mother who was accused got charged. Like, I think there was a trial and everything. And her public image was like ruined by this because I went back and looked originally when it was looked like she had actually done it like 10 months ago or something. And all the comments were about how this woman is an awful person.
So you're saying the final video that was this video of this girl vaping.
Yeah.
Did that in any way look like a deep fake?
No. It looks so. And also high schoolers, like what high schooler doesn't vape? It's like,
Right.
it just looks like such a normal video of a girl vaping.
Yeah.
And obviously it shows what a lack of understanding people have of this AI deep learning stuff.
Yeah.
That this probably like 60, people think this 60-year-old woman knows how to make a deep fake, which
Right.
took Nico
A perfect deepfake.
like a perfect deep fake, which took
with
Nico like a
vape
year to learn how to
simulations
do.
obscuring her face.
Nico like a
Oh, there's
professional.
smoke too.
Oh, it's,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, dude, like
So that's important.
ILM
though.
level deep
I think it's
fakes.
important to like bring that up because a lot of times, average viewer not spending their time harnessing AI technology for creative purposes, not taking time to understand the nuances of visual effects and how different techniques work and need to be applied. All of that stuff, especially when you get into like the my child zone and it's
Yeah.
like high school, especially with how paranoid people are of like, anything that can be bad for the kids. Like, yeah, that I can see how people would flip out about it, but it also does highlight, and I think this video highlights it as well. It's like, I don't know how well people grasp this stuff yet, because it's not really publicly talked about. And any time it is brought up, there was the whole thing 2 years ago when it started to become like, when we started to see deepfake videos more often, all you could read about was just fear mongering.
Yeah.
When it came to like traditional articles and information sources about the topic, it was just like, what's a deepfake? It's when somebody steals your voice or it's when somebody steals your face and puts it on somebody else, and they can make you say and do whatever you want, whatever they want.
I think they think somebody just steals your face and they can like push a button and make you say anything.
Right.
And I don't think it's interesting. Like there's a lot of emotion around this word consent, but there's also a lot of emotion around AI,
And your likeness.
your likeness stuff, because people are really worried about this stuff. And
rightfully,
I think it's, again, like another interesting thing to explore with this video is how scary it's getting, but it's still, if you were to actually pressure test this Jake voice, it doesn't, there's no tonality to it. It's just very monotone, very low. Like we can get away with some stuff, but like there's a brand integration in the YouTube version of the video.
Yeah.
And we snuck in some,
there was about 6 or 7
AI
lines that I didn't say.
But and like one of the top comments was like, "Oh, they put it in the,
Or maybe I did say those and you guys just typed them in. I don't know what you did for that.
So
Yeah,
we
I
literally
mixed
just
it
took
up.
your whole clip that you made for Storyblocks,
Yeah.
and I used Descript to transcribe it,
Yeah.
and then I just copy pasted the text back into the
Okay.
AI voice.
Yeah.
Yeah. It took like no
Yeah.
effort.
So
yeah, I mean, give it a couple of years, it'll sound better. But
I mean, sure,
like,
it'll sound better.
still-
I mean, yeah, like I don't want to like excuse it because of like the quality too much. I mean, it was pretty. It's a good voice, but that's why we did a presentation. That's why we did like a boring corporate presentation, because the tone of voice like naturally fit that kind of like speech.
Right.
Like because we sat there messing with it, going, wait, should we have like him leave voice memos or something for? It's like, nah, this just isn't working. Like, Jake doesn't like with this voice. Like Jake never talks to anyone like this. This has to be just him saying stuff to no one,
as if I recorded it to no one.
Yeah, as if you recorded it to no one, because that's the and so this is the big issue still with like all this stuff, is that it's very limited with its use.
So I do want to talk about. Let's go down this rabbit hole for a little bit, because right now it is fairly limited with its use, but in like 5 years, it's not going to be as limited as it is right now. And
Publicly available stuff is limited. Private companies currently are doing it in amazing levels.
Yes.
Like Respeecher's stuff. Respeecher is just knocking it, blowing it out of the water right now. Like, they have tons of videos online that'll scare the pants off you.
And like,
or enlighten the pants off you. Because it's pretty cool too.
Respeecher was used on the Book of Boba Fett for the new Luke Skywalker, and that's also the pinnacle of deepfakes. So if people have seen that show and have seen Luke in that show, that is like the pinnacle, I think, of what you can do right now with a AI generated face and AI generated voice, which is, you know, it's very convincing in a curated context. And I'm not trying to argue that because it's not great doesn't mean we shouldn't be having conversations about this and the implications, but I do think there's still a lot of emotion around the topic.
Obviously.
That is that people are treating it like it's already out of control, like it's already you know. And I think that was a very positive thing when we did that video about the Andrew Garfield leaked clip, because now something comes out and people just immediately say, oh, it's deepfake, you know, deepfake. And I think, like you're saying, Jake, in 5 years, it very well could be the case that's, you know, I've seen a lot of stuff.
It could be.
Not to get to, you know, current events with this, but like a lot of people sharing videos of Putin that are like pretty obviously just like press conferences or something. And they're like, look, it's deep faked. And I'm like,
but
there was one that was like on a green screen and there was like some artifacting. So everyone thought it was totally fake.
Yeah, but even still, it's like, what does it matter if it's fake or not?
Yeah.
Like, I don't get it. Like,
Exactly.
why is it, I mean, that's the thing too, just backing up going like, all right, this Putin press conference, like, let's say it's fake. Meaningless. Well, no effect on any news or public discourse.
It matters because because there's still like people still are, and this will always be the case. But every one of us, all four of us, everyone else, we are reliant on outside sources for information.
Yeah.
And when there is a threat to the truth of that information, it throws your world upside down because you're like, wait, how do I know what's real anymore?
I think with Putin, it's more the idea that, oh, they have the tech to fake this and we're catching it. Like, is this tech out there already?
So what else are they faking?
It's not like, oh, they're faking Putin, because you're right. That, like, who, why, you know?
Yeah, because
like,
they could immediately just come out and say this was fake. Yeah. And then I guess, to your point, Jake, like in the future, it gets to this point where something comes out, people say it's a deep fake, people say, no, it wasn't a deep fake, and then we're just talking about like, is any of this real? But I think that's honestly just a larger topic for the culture, you know, like with the whole fake news thing. It like media being there being so much media that people can't even begin to consume all of it. It's just we're getting to this point where the internet might not be the most reliable source of information. You know, like you have to look, just go outside and look at the real world.
Yeah.
And like all of us are at risk of what we showed in that video. I mean, just by being on this podcast here or having any sort of internet presence, soon you're not going to need probably as much data to do this, right? Like I'm guessing the amount is
technically the Lyrebird algorithm that this voice is based on. So like it came up like 3 years ago, and what made it really special was you could give it like 1 to 3 minutes of audio, and it could basically recreate the voice. Like right now, like they've opted, you know, the reason I submitted right now, their minimum's like 10, 15 minutes now. I think that's to really round it up. But like, yeah, you can do it with almost nothing.
Yeah.
You know, like I was thinking a little bit like about that voice ID process that I had to go through. Because, you know, people were like, oh, I did show how you could break the rules.
Yeah.
Fine. It requires a lot of stuff. That being said, I also was messaged over the weekend by a viewer of ours, and that this viewer of ours was like, hey, what's up? And I missed one of his messages from like a week ago. And the message from a week ago was him outlining basically everything I did. Dang. And saying that he had done it. And he showed me what he'd done with it. And he did it to someone else at our studio.
Oh, shit.
And he even put that onto a video and had the mouth move.
Wow.
He did the whole thing. And
so before the video even came out.
So this is before the video came out. And I just, you know, it was in my, you know, general messages on Instagram. So I didn't get a notification. I was just curious this weekend, like, am I getting like crazy messages right now? So I check it, and it was just this one guy who had done it. I'm not going to name him specifically, but
who'd he fake, Ren?
Yeah, it was Ren.
How'd I guess?
I don't want to name him specifically because he'll probably get banned from the service if I do it. But basically, the way he broke the voice ID was the way you would actually do it if you are more determined and more skilled than I am. The way he broke the voice ID is by taking the data set he submitted to Descript and then running his own AI voice offline model on his own computer, like with actual script, like, you know, like the way Nico does it with actual like Python script and stuff on just like a really crappy AI voice model, and then just typed it in and then uploaded that.
Well, we even threw out that idea for a little bit of doing that.
Exactly. We that was part of that discussion is let's make a crappy AI one first and then see if that works. But I think it really just comes down to this idea, which is like, is it easy to do that regardless of which method? It's like, no, actually it's not easy. Like it takes a lot of determination and work to do. It's not accessible to everyone. You know, it requires a specific skill set and like the right tools and a certain amount of hours and energy and effort to do it. So it's not like anyone can just hop down and do it still. Yeah. That being said, like, do they need better verification? Yeah, they should look at it. They should refine it.
The CEO even brought that up and said, hey, maybe you pointed out some things that are good for people to understand.
Completely. It's like this video was valuable for that reason mostly, I think. It's like it shows people how easy it is to actually do this. And it's like those white hat hackers or whatever who are hired by corporations to like, hey, can you hack into our site and like tell us where we need to strengthen? It's like, okay, we're all scared of AI taking over our lives and being replicated and made to say random crap, you know, do random crap. Right. So like, isn't it in our benefit if we're trying to break these early versions and like
absolutely
security?
It is, especially when it's not like it's low stakes, you know, it's
so
for fun.
Stakes.
It's for fun
now. At least.
Yeah. I mean, like I think in the future, if you know, once the models start getting actually better, if you're going to offer a service that allows anyone in the public to kind of perform tasks like this, they'll require a deeper level of verification. And I honestly think at that point, you know, really the easiest way to do it is just like do driver's license.
Human verification.
It's like that. It's like it's less about like who, you know, at that point it's not about verifying the data set so much. It's just making sure that you really know who is doing it and making sure that if something comes out where it's like, oh, there's a crazy model of this person's voice, and the people at that company can just check their records and go, is anyone messing with this right now? And they're like, oh, we actually know the person who's doing it. So that way there's like, it's less about faking someone's voice at that point, but making sure that someone is responsible if they do.
And that already exists. Like D-Speech, what's it called?
Descript?
Descript could literally probably go back and listen to the voice sample you submitted.
Oh, they did.
And when they do, they'll be like, this is the jankiest shit I've ever heard in my life.
The CEO posted
Sam.
on the video, and he was like, yeah, so we looked through the account, and we saw, he did like 4 attempts to try and break them. there's 4 voice IDs uploaded, and the first 3 failed. Yeah. And the first one was me just going like, I'm Jake Watson. Let's see what, and it failed. Jake. And I'm like, okay, that didn't work. Okay, so then I like tried another one, and then the third one was me holding the microphone to the speaker, you know, and just like, and that failed because I think there are algorithms right now that can sense whether it's actually someone speaking into a microphone versus pre-recorded voice. And then the final one I did was I just rerouted the desktop audio into my mic, and that is what worked.
Which again, that takes a certain understanding of a lot of different moving parts with the technology to be able to do it.
So I mean, I obviously just explained it all, but you know, it's like, what are you going to do? It's like
there's like 2 things though.
You'll be able to fake your teacher giving a presentation now. Basically,
there's 2 things. There's 2 things. I mean, I think we do need to be legitimately aware about how this technology can be misused, and that's like anything. It's like we got to be aware about that with cars. We got to be aware about that with guns. We got to be aware about that with food. Yeah. Like everything. And if we're not, then that's just ignorance, right? But like part 1 is, hey, let's make access to, you know, verification and consent more stringent. But then also, there's got to be some way where we can start to use AI to detect AI.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that'll get very, very much built out. I think something will happen where something genuinely, like a lot of people are genuinely fooled by something and something bad happens. And then we'll have like some kind of coordinated response.
Yeah, I mean, there's already companies that are like basically cybersecurity companies that are working on this right now. Like 3 years ago, was it three? About three.
They've
when
probably
Ren and I
known
went to
about it
that
for
TED
15.
Talk, there was even a guy talking about his startup that is all about verifying fake videos, you know, deepfakes, fake videos, VFX. Like it runs it through an algorithm,
Right.
and it's able to apparently identify that. And his whole thing was it was meant for like war-torn countries, like what we're seeing right now, like being able to verify are these things real, you know?
So on that note, we had a bunch of people, not a bunch of people, but we had a certain amount of people. It was like a handful or two
Enough
handfuls,
to
notice of people emailing us, asking us to do deepfakes of Putin, telling his troops to stand down. And to me, that's just like, it's such an egregious like violation of everything. Like it's one thing to, hey, let's make a deep fake. Let's take a voice AI of Jake, and then let's make
it's
hilarious.
It's probably like
Dude,
some sort of act of war.
It's
honestly.
everything on both sides,
like,
man. It's like, how dare you? And it's like, also, by the way, everyone's also like, hey, can you do this without this guy's consent?
Oh, and also, Siri, turn off the lights.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, that's a funny one. I'll do.
Like Alexa, turn off the lights. It's like you are.
You invited him
actively
into your
talking
home.
to an AI.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, like I just think I'd encourage people to not live in the Twitterverse, you know, like realize like, hey, these things do have real world implications, and saying that you can slough off the means because of the ends, you know. Well, you know, I want this to happen, so you guys should do this, and anything that you need to do to get there. Well, it doesn't matter if it's a complete violation in another context.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you can't do that.
And even if we could, those videos would never get in front of Putin's troops. I'm sorry to say, they are so insulated in their own propaganda and cut off from the rest of the Western media, whatever.
Yeah, they would never.
It's
even
just the
they
point
never
is
see the video.
You don't use. You
They're
don't
like
even
talking about unplugging their whole internet right
Exactly.
now.
And it would be a great excuse for Putin to be like, hey, look, Western media, at
Definitely
it
an
again.
act
They
of
can
war,
fake
for
what
sure.
I'm saying,
Right.
you know?
That would escalate things so much.
Yeah, it
dude,
would
it's
just
basically doing what they're already doing to their own people.
be so unconscionably irresponsible to just like casually, hey, let's just do this thing to influence a war, people's lives.
Yeah,
people may die from this, but
like,
you know what?
Yeah.
It's like
Make a
saying
good
Sam's
video.
evil.
Right.
I mean, like, in my imagination,
Yeah.
just like, oh, I deepfake Putin and all the troops went home. That's like a nice thought, you
Right.
know? Like, yeah, the war ends.
Putin's like, dang it, they got me.
He's like, hey, what are we watching?
Hey, turn that off. No, you turn that off.
They got me saying the thing I didn't want to
Quit
say.
sharing.
no.
Quit sharing
I
the
guess they
video.
might as well just come home.
Yeah.
Right. So obviously, like,
It's like a bad movie script.
If we can download this into the
Wait a minute.
mainframe, all the Russian soldiers will see it.
but even
That's not their web.
even
That's not
with
me.
even with
I
the
gotta get to the
most,
bottom of this.
like, let's talk about Boba Fett for a second, and even with the most.
Gladly.
Even with the best guys in the industry working on this, like, right, and spending just their time on this one environment, this one character,
You're talking Luke right now. Okay.
Yeah.
that's the result. And you know, it's like, obviously, if the technology keeps evolving and it keeps becoming accessible, then, you know, is there a universe that we live in years from now where somebody could do the teenager vaping thing? I guess maybe there's a reality that exists, but like,
But we're already all plugged into VR, into the metaverse anyway.
it's just like you have to
Yeah, we're
consider
not gonna
also
need
what's
the live action
going to
footage
be running
anymore.
alongside of that. You
Dude,
know,
I saw his
Yeah.
virtual avatar expose himself,
right?
and he needs to go to prison.
I heard you're not allowed. I heard there's space parameters now.
No, there are, because
the
groping was
metaverse.
apparently a huge problem in the metaverse. in the alpha, people were
Although-
groping each other.
Yo, bro.
Consent, dude.
No, honestly,
Dude,
so
that
now
stuff
they're
is
putting
so
in
funny.
Now they're putting in like hula hoops around people of like you can't go near like
No,
bump into you.
no.
so
I-
dumb.
So weird.
One of the people
So
that
weird.
lady who initially like caused that headline, she works for like another freaking VR
Oh
company.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Spicy.
Yeah, she's just like, I was groped in the metaverse, and then she's like, haha, And then she goes work at her own VR studio.
It's just her and her friend like going
Yeah,
like this.
it's so many deep. It's so deep.
Utilize culture's general awareness and like.
People have to worry more about headlines than deepfakes still.
Yeah,
yes,
honestly,
they definitely do.
because like
Yes.
I feel like the
all do.
GPT-3, like the articles it generates is so much more convincing than the voices that AI can create or the faces. Like the articles that you can pump out of those.
They're like those like real articles you read.
Because most articles are awful.
They are.
By the way, that is at a casual level. There are literally applications.
Yes.
They're paid services, and you're like, I want to write an article about this thing, and you type in 3 bullet points, and then you click a button, and you're done.
Yeah.
Like
it skims Wikipedia and like fills it out mostly.
Yeah, it
for
does
you.
that all.
Yeah.
Like they do it for blog posts too. It's like,
That
do you want to
happened
keep up
with
a
those-
blog but hate writing?
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, what's your blog about this? Any other facts? And you throw in your facts, and they go like, here's a blog. And you're like, cool, you post it, and you're like,
That happened with the motion capture suit article. Remember?
Yeah.
There was this, and it still gets it. I have a scraper on Google that like scrapes for Corridor Digital, and they kept using our name in that article, or the AI did, and they kept reposting it. But there was an article that was about trying to pump up. It was like one of those penny stocking articles where somebody's trying to pump up like a penny stock, and like so they're like, oh guys, this is the new thing, like motion capture suits. They're going to be a big deal. So like invest now, and then I didn't really read it. I like skimmed it and I was like, oh yeah, look at that, that's funny. And I sent it to Sam and the crew, and Sam was like, this is an AI article.
Oh my God. You read it, you're like, oh.
Yeah, and then because I didn't send it like, oh my God, look at this. I said all I did was see, oh, this is somebody doing an economic analysis, and our name is mentioned because of motion capture suits.
Yeah.
But then they start talking about bow hunting goats at the end of the article.
What does that mean?
Oh man,
It's crazy, man. We learned a lot from this video. I think everyone learned a lot.
And the same thing happened with Bosstown Dynamics.
Yeah.
When we did the second Bosstown. I mean, just
that one is so
still gets
egregious though for people who fell for that, because it's like there's literally this robot like saves his dog at the end of the video.
I know, but people were cutting that. See, again, it's all about context.
Yeah.
They're cutting
people
that
were
off.
cutting out the beginning. They were cutting straight into the thing where I hand Clint the gun,
Right.
and he starts shooting the targets, and then they cut a few scenes, and then they cut all that other stuff out.
Right.
Well, I mean, the VFX are dang good. The fact that you guys used real muzzles and real like bullets hitting stuff,
Right.
Because you were actually at a gun range.
Yeah.
It makes it like that extra level of convincing. If those are PP muzzle flashes, or even
Right.
like even comped on the best muzzle flashes, it would not look. There's just something like so real about it,
Right.
Especially when you view it on a phone
Right.
and you don't have the
It's all
context. Then you're
compressed
like,
and-
Yeah.
this is blowing my mind right now.
Right.
Like going to an actual firing range and like
Yeah.
actually shooting the crap and stuff, and you're like, those are good effects. I'm like,
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
because
they are.
They're real.
the best practical ones you can buy.
Yeah.
Well, Ren's been messing around with this phone software. I think it's called Biplay or Biplate or something, where it uses the LiDAR in the iPhone 13 to track the environment, and basically kicks out a Cinema 4D like project with a tracked camera to your phone, so you can literally just film and then just throw it in, and you got the whole scene like tracked, ready to go.
Right.
And that's
wild.
So that with all of the new like AI rotoscoping tools, I feel like the next Bosstown video you could just freaking do it in like a weekend, because all of the things that were tough back then are now like
They're getting easier.
Speaking of
really
AI
easy.
tools.
Speaking of AI tools.
Yeah, sorry, that was a good segue into a little
AI,
project.
there's
yeah.
AI tools. Yeah, AI influencers actually happening.
Yes.
Wait.
It's actually begun.
The
process.
AI influencer?
The AI influencer. It all starts with GPT-3. We're going to take
all goes
a
back
script.
to the brain.
It's going to output a prompt for us that has everything from where the social media post is happening, a location, what's the overall mood, what dialogue is happening, are there any dance moves that are happening, and then also, last but not least, what's the camera angle? Are we selfie, first person, blah, blah, blah. And so I've got a pretty good prompt going that's outputting pretty consistent and zany results. And so we take that script that it outputs and we feed that into Unreal, where it parses it and then dynamically sets the scene to whatever we give it. It's pretty cool. And yeah, so it's like we have the skeleton working right now. So Brad, there's a guy named Brad. He's Peter's buddy. He's helping him on a game. And Brad is a professional Unreal Engine specialist, blueprint specialist or something. I don't know what you want to call him. Anyway, he knows Unreal. So he's helping with some of the top level stuff because he knows it better. He knows the program better than Peter and myself. He's doing that. I'm doing character face animation stuff, lip sync, blah, blah, blah. And it's going. We're going to do it. And the goal, what is the goal? The goal originally was a one button influencer post thing. You press a button, it generates something for you.
I want content.
That's going to be a little harder, and that's down the line if we continue working on it, because it's the hardest part.
Right.
But right now we can do it in like batches, basically. That's how we'll probably do it, where we give it like 10 scripts and it outputs that, and then we would upload those by hand.
I mean, still, if you're not, I feel like it fulfills the idea as long as you're putting zero creative input in. It's like you generate it,
yes,
you throw it in.
All we're doing is vetoing it when it talks about heinous stuff.
Yeah, exactly. We do that.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a finite like amount of things that it can perform. Obviously, like the dialogue is infinite. There's no limit on that. But obviously, like environments, dance moves, animations, etc. Like we have to do that. Currently, there's not an AI that can like animate the character procedurally, so to speak. So yeah, but the script is always procedural. The camera is always procedural. Like where it is in the environment, what it's it's doing is procedural. There's randomness. Like it's designed so that there will never be the same shot twice, and ideally there's never even the same like line of dialogue twice. So it could go on forever.
I feel like in order to really, really be an AI influencer, though, you need to have procedural gaffes. Like maybe just slip in a little flat Earth line,
Yeah,
you need to have controversy in there, man. If it's going to be a real influencer,
I tried that out.
People love controversy.
It's really easy to do that actually, because you basically just tell it to talk about deep subjects, and it will randomly select a deep subject and weigh in on it.
Wow.
Like you can just be like,
Wow.
I typed near-death experiences, as like a subject, like topic, and it was like, yeah. I think I had a near-death experience this morning, and I saw the light and I walked towards it. Have any of you guys had near-death experiences? Like it'll go off on these wacky tangents like that. So we can have it talk about anything. And I think the fun thing is like right now, so we're like prepping it to basically do like batches, because that's just the best way it happens. So like we'll have like 10 scripts at a time run. We feed it the script. Obviously we have to plug in the voice outside of Unreal, but regardless, you'll be able to hit play and it'll procedurally do those scripts. And since it's all continuous, like we have this hilarious system where there's like this thing called physical animation, which is like half IK, where let's say you're dancing in an area and instead of your arm clipping through the wall, it'll like properly like bounce off of stuff. So it'll be like making this mess basically as it goes through its like house. And like later down, like as we go deeper into it, we'll be able to see in the background like previous locations that are like what happened there. And then the one thing to think about here is continuity. So let's say the character explores a cave and finds an old treasure map, and it's very mysterious. What we do between batches is we basically have recaps that get fed back into the prompt. This has to kind of be done by hand still because of the weird formatting. But basically, all we do is write like a 3 or 4 sentence recap of what the first batch was, and it becomes canon. And then suddenly the next batch has the potential to like bring up a topic and continue from where it left off earlier.
Wow.
Which that's the real fun in my opinion, because you start to kind of develop this like long running story now. And then that's where my heart's at, which is like I want like post 40 to like reference something like in post 11.
Yeah.
And you're like, what?
So you guys remember how I was working on this chicken coop? All right, so we got the chickens the other day.
Found an unlocked safe in
Yeah. So the way I think it's also going to be structured here too. I'm just going all out. So dynamically switching locations is something that's a little difficult. So the way we're actually going to do it is we're going to basically design like a kind of like an open world map. and that's where everything happens.
Well,
so it's all centered
their
around this
house
like
or
virtual
something.
influencer house.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
Yeah,
and that's like the
Like
main
the Vine
area.
building.
Yeah. But then around it are going to be these sub locations where we can have stuff happen, and that's how we are able to basically get this streamlined and have it function effectively. But that's what makes
so
the batches
funny.
cool, is because now they're all in the same spot. So like we go to the kitchen, we're outside in the front yard doing a story, and we come back to the living room, we see the kitchen in the background. It's like, whoa, it's like we see, evidence of the previous stories happening.
But just know,
Yeah.
like this isn't going to appear as a real life person in a real life environment. This is obviously all being designed in a video game engine.
Yeah, it's gonna kind of look like a video game.
Yeah.
When it's done. So yeah.
It's again like we're not trying to like fool people that there's an actual person that we've created in virtual space.
No, and it's very forwardly AI. Like
Right.
there's at no point is it ever going to be like pretending that a person said or wrote any of this. It's all like but that is the joke, which is this AI is going to come up with these stories.
It's an AI influencer. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And then, but if it's an influencer house, we get to go to this other realm now, which is like, are there other influencers?
Yeah.
Right. Who do they
Who
hang
else
out
lives
with?
in this home?
Yeah.
What else is happening here? You know, do we
So
pass
my
rooms
friend
and we
Mark,
see people?
he's got the Mark Jumps
Do you see
channel.
is there a guy streaming in like one of the rooms that we pass every once in a while? Like, what's happening in there?
Can the skin lord be like hiding in the basement?
Dude, just little skin lord. Creepy Easter eggs.
It's just even creepier that this whole story
The
is just
liminal space
Yes.
pulled out of-
influencer.
yeah.
It can get very eerie very quickly.
Yeah.
Like, what's that on the ceiling? What's that dark figure in the corner of the wall watching us?
As she's just dancing, like looking straight into the camera.
Whose head is clipping through the wall back there, and why are they looking directly into camera?
so weird. But that's
What
the idea.
lies
Is it's like
underneath the
obviously
house?
fun.
Oh,
That's
cemetery.
That's the question I hope this AI can answer for us. We'll design the space of what's underneath the house, but what happens there
Right.
is not up to us.
Right.
The house was
Weird.
built on top of an old dump where they put all these old computers. And
Yeah.
they say there's some souls in those computers.
There's some nodes.
Yeah.
Some data
There's some
nodes.
weird AIs maybe
There's
floating
a
around.
Yeah.
portal to the real
There's a
world.
huge graveyard.
A graveyard of old
other AI
computers.
influencers who didn't make it.
Oh yeah, all the past versions.
Yeah.
It's like
I
Westworld.
know.
They
We can
chuck
get
you onto
really
the
crazy, and
graveyard.
all we do is just say that it exists. We just say there's a haunted graveyard of past AI influencers, and it does the rest.
Wow.
So
Well, I'm excited for that. We're filming that video this week.
Oh my god.
And next week probably. So
So
speaking of that,
obviously there's. Oh.
no, I was just gonna ask, like, where are you at? Like, how close are you, Sam?
How close? We're like at like the V1 stage where
Okay.
it's like lip sync works, basic animation
building
works.
the
It's
bones.
really wacky and glitchy still.
Nice.
But like as I said, like the bones are there, and we know what the roadmap is to completing this. Like
there's
and
bones.
probably by the end of the week we'll have like the basic system running, and then from there it's all about like, you know, populating it, like getting the areas fleshed out and stuff. Yeah, I think honestly it's gonna take probably another like 2 weeks to like actually get it done. So yeah,
You know what's
Well,
really interesting about
the
that
V1 anyway.
is
yeah.
that like a couple of years ago, I remember seeing Ken Levine, who is the guy who did BioShock and stuff.
yeah?
He gave a talk on basically, you remember Shadow of Mordor,
Yeah.
the whole side of it where like you have interactions with characters and the history of that is played out later. He was just talking about the ramifications of that for the game industry, and in an interesting way, you guys are kind of creating a very primitive version of a world that could I mean, it's in a game engine, like a game that could be, you know, procedurally generated, like storytelling essentially.
Exactly. Well, it's like AI Dungeon is. You played that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like AI Dungeon is like the truest version of that so far. Like the biggest thing with those repetitive stories and having it procedural, it's all about having an algorithm that actually understands language.
Yeah.
And like GPT-3 is like basically the first version of that. It's like GPT-2, we've messed with that. It's very zany and makes no sense very frequently, whereas GPT-3, it's like
knows.
it whips itself back in line. You know what I mean?
Wow,
It can do that. So we'll see. We'll see where this goes.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's bottom line is
Yeah.
it's a great creative tool. And we're trying to put it to good use and like do some fun, cool stuff with it. And that's what we were doing with the video. That's what we're doing with these other videos where we're going to be utilizing it.
Well,
Idea blast.
And,
I just need to
we gotta
write.
blast.
I just need to write Void Room as one of the locations, and just see what happens when it sets a post in the Void Room.
Dude,
now,
write it down.
obviously there are like ethical and moral considerations to be vetted with the development of AI, with the development of any technology. So, you know, the more people know, the better off everyone is about it. Honestly,
We're
the more
pioneers. We're pushing the freaking limits.
the more people, the more people know about it and how it works and how it doesn't work, and we'll do our part to like give information like this. If we put out a video and it's like, oh, clearly there was context missing, we'll do stuff like this to put more context to it.
and like,
Yeah.
not trying to brush off all the comments. We hear the concern. It's noted. And yeah, I mean, I think next time there's something related to consent, maybe we'll use better verbiage and a bit more tact in how we
maybe-
approach that.
And maybe have a
But-
slightly more positive spin at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a big thing
Well,
is like,
it needs the post credit scene where it's like,
yeah,
that was a real good one.
yeah,
Same
yeah,
time
yeah.
next week. All right.
And that's like, it's the same thing with the Peter thing. It's the same thing with this video.
Yeah.
People, it's our own fault because we've made you guys into lovable characters and the audience has a connection to you. So when they see one of you done dirty, bad.
Right,
It's
right,
bad, all bad.
right.
So
My senpai.
exactly.
Right.
And that's
Yeah,
something we
no,
can,
it's real.
that's the biggest takeaway I've gotten from those two videos. So are you pressing charges? Should I call 911 right now?
yeah. Actually,
Okay.
Sam,
911. I've seen a fraud.
if you want to go on a
Put him in
hunting
the
trip
void
to
room.
Queensland, Australia,
Oh,
Yeah, I
That
heard the
sounds
laws
fun.
are a little different there.
yeah, I've got tickets already.
You guys could really bond over that, I think.
Yeah.
You know what? Oh, let's do it.
Okay.
Okay. Like
Only-
deep into the bush where
Only
no one's
one
there,
of
no
us
cell
is gonna
service.
come back. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do they hunt with over there?
Well, I think. I mean, they took away people's ARs,
It's
but you can
bow and
still
arrow.
use like
It'll be a
shotgun
bow and arrow
and stuff.
thing,
yeah.
I think, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
All
Bow
right.
and arrow would be fine.
Right.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
They just throw venomous spiders on the animal.
You slingshot a spider,
Pick up a spider and chuck it. Yep.
punt a spider.
Launch
This
one.
one's got some good venom.
And it just goes like this. This one's got some good venom.
All right.
Oh man. Well, that was a good one.
All right.
I'm always excited because each week you never know. We always have like, you know, here's our plan for this week, but then things happen and it's always fun to just be able to jump on it and talk about it.
Sometimes you get pranked.
Sometimes you get pranked around here. You never know.
Yep.
Well, stole your
I'm
likeness.
surprised people aren't as offended about the early Ren spider videos. Speaking of spiders,
Oops.
when we really used to prank Ren hard
Yeah.
with the spiders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had to stop doing that.
Yeah, we had to stop doing it because he ran into a wall.
Yeah, but that's a good example of when he said stop and then we stopped.
Right.
So
Right.
Guys,
But
then I
to
forgot that-
be clear, he was okay with us putting out those videos.
yeah,
But he was like, "Can you also not do that again?"
yeah.
As long as the spiders are like in a D&D setting, he handles it. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of those in
As long
there.
as they're just not
Anyways,
real.
All right then.
Cool,
next
guys.
time.
Thanks for
Thanks for
watching,
listening.
everybody.
Thanks for
thanks for
watching.
being reasonable.
Consider subscribing.
Subscribe.